Love. It's this beautiful, intoxicating, sometimes heartbreaking thing that, let's be honest, we're all chasing in one way or another. It feels like pure magic, right? But what if we could peek behind the curtain? Well, today we're going to do just that. Let's dive into the science and the philosophy of this incredible mystery. I mean, this quote from Sleepless in Seattle just nails it, doesn't it? That feeling of finding something you didn't even know you were looking for. It's this sense of discovery and recognition all at once, a feeling that seems to fly in the face of all logic. And that brings us to the big question for our whole explainer today. Can we actually take this magical, often chaotic experience and break it down into something, well, something we can actually understand? To get started, let's look at the huge why question. For centuries, way before we had brain scans or any kind of data, philosophers were wrestling with this exact same thing. What is the fundamental purpose of love? And boy, were there answers all over the place. You had Plato, who thought we love to find our other half, to feel complete. Then you have Schopenhauer, who was way more cynical, basically saying it's just a biological trick to get us to make babies. Bertrand Russell saw it as a way to escape our own loneliness, while the Buddha warned it was an attachment that ultimately leads to suffering. And then there's Simone de Beauvoir, who saw it as this beautiful way to grow by reaching beyond ourselves with someone else. Okay, so from all these big abstract ideas, let's zoom all the way into the concrete. What is actually happening inside our brains when we fall head over heels? It's time to look at the biology. Well, according to anthropologist Helen Fisher, our brains kind of run three different love programs. First up, you've got lust. That's our basic sex drive, all fueled by testosterone and estrogen. Then comes attraction, that can't eat, can't sleep, obsessive romantic phase. And finally, if things go well, you get to attachment, that calm, cozy feeling of a long-term bond. And that attraction phase, it is powerful. A part of our brain's reward system just lights up, releasing this flood of dopamine. This is the exact same chemical that gives you a rush from eating your favorite food or, other more illicit things. That's why early love can feel so incredibly good, so euphoric, and even addictive. It's basically a drug. And this is where we see a really wild contrast. The brain in the early stages of love is, well, it's a chaotic mess. You've got high dopamine driving this intense craving, and get this, the part of our brain responsible for judgment actually quiets down. We are literally seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. But the brain in a long-term attachment, it's the total opposite. It's calm, it's relaxed, thanks to bonding hormones like oxytocin that build trust and dial down stress. So, if that initial chaotic phase always fades, what's the deal? Why do some couples make that leap into calm, stable attachment while so many others just don't? This question leads us to some truly groundbreaking research that can actually predict a relationship's future. For decades, a researcher named Dr. John Gottman and his team did something incredible. They created what they called the Love Lab. They bring couples in, wire them up to measure heart rate, sweat, you name it, and then they would just watch them talk. They collected this massive treasure trove of data to figure out what makes a relationship tick. And what they discovered was just mind-blowing. By observing a couple having a conversation about a point of conflict for just a few minutes, they could predict with over 90% accuracy whether that couple would stay together or get divorced. 90%! One of the key things they found was what Gottman famously calls the Roach Hotel model. It's a great metaphor. For unhappy couples, once they check into a negative emotional state like anger or contempt, they can't check out. They just get stuck there, spiraling. So what was the secret? What did the happy couples do differently? It all boiled down to something they called the magic ratio. During a conflict, the happy, stable couples had 5 positive interactions, a little touch, a quick joke, a moment of empathy, for every 1 negative interaction. And the unhappy couples? They had less than 1 positive for every negative. It shows that the magic isn't about never fighting. It's all about how you navigate the fight together. Now, all this amazing science has a really interesting collision with the way we date today, because our whole approach to finding a partner has changed so dramatically. So, many psychiatrists have noticed this modern paradox. A lot of us walk around with a mental checklist of what we want in a partner. They have to be this tall, have this job, like these things. But the weird thing is, our stated preferences often have zero to do with who we actually feel that spark with. Sometimes we're even drawn to people who have what we'd call red flags. And this perfectly illustrates two totally different ways of thinking. First, you have the checklist mindset. This sees a partner like a product you buy off a shelf. If you're unhappy, the product must be defective, so you go find a new one. The list of demands just gets longer and longer. But then there's the builder's mindset. And this is what we see in those successful long-term couples. They see love as a co-op game. Happiness isn't something you find, it's something you build together, day by day through hard work and a ton of flexibility.
All right, so when we put all of this stuff together, the philosophy, the brain chemistry, the real-world behavioral data, a totally new picture of what love is really starts to take shape. And this definition, which is inspired by the philosopher Simone de Beauvoir, just feels so right for everything we've learned. Authentic love isn't about finding some perfect person who completes you. No, it's about two people actively helping each other grow, discover themselves, and make each other's lives richer. And what does that kind of love actually take? Well, the research is clear. It's built on a bedrock of calm, trust, and real commitment. It needs personal flexibility. It requires you to genuinely prioritize your partner's happiness. And maybe most importantly, it requires a deep willingness to work on yourself. So that leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. We started this whole thing talking about the magic of love, but what if that magic isn't some mysterious force you just hope to stumble upon one day? What if the real magic is something you actively, intentionally, and lovingly build, brick by brick, together?